achieved.
I've talked about this before when Phil Davis and Josh Thompson and Benson Henderson left the UFC to go to Bellator. And I talked about they were just cracks, talented, noteworthy fighters, but not, it's not the be-all and end-all when they left. But now you're seeing Rory McDonald go there. Lorenz Larkin is going there. You've seen some, the numbers are changing a little bit in favor of Bellator. Do they have the talent level the UFC has? No. Do they have the depth the UFC has? No. But they have more and more name fighters. They're going to be able to put on more and more, entertaining fights. They've got the pay-per-view coming up with Fedor and Mitrione, with Sonnen and Silva. And it's unfortunate that they've added these, top-notch fighters, Ryan Bader being another one who's fighting on the card. But they're featuring some older guys. Mitrione, still fairly relevant, I think, could make a run for the heavyweight title. But Fedor, it should be interesting to see how that goes. I haven't decided, depending on what the time frame is, I might do a show for the card. We'll have to wait and see. But the point is, now they've added enough talented guys, combined with their own homegrown talent, that fighters in the UFC might be looking over at Bellator saying, if I don't get what I want here, there's some pretty good fights for me to go over there, a chance for me to make a run, win a title, and either carve a career out in Bellator, or improve my standing and come back to the UFC and say, hey, look at me. I went 4-0 in Bellator, I won a title over there, I did some good things, show me the money, basically. Either way, it should be very interesting to see how the next 12 to 24 months goes. If 2 or 3 more fighters per division start jumping ship, it's going to be very interesting to see how that all plays out. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. Always, I am your host, Scott Johnson. And on this episode of the show, we are breaking down the UFC 210 pay-per-view, which will take place on April 8th from the KeyBank Center in Buffalo, New York, featuring the rematch between the light heavyweight champion Daniel Cormier and Anthony Rumble Johnson. Very much looking forward to the fight. It's been a while since we had a show, a UFC event. Almost 3 weeks off, and then we're going to have a string of 3 events, and then we'll have another little bit of time off. I kind of like that format. Hopefully they keep sticking to something similar to that. I like the breaks. It gets you more amped up for this card. It's a pretty decent card. Obviously not on the level of UFC 211, but I'm excited for it. I've hit a bit of a slump, even though I almost broke even last show. I had some winning hands, or winning fight predictions with my bet packs, and some winning bets. I fell just short. I came right down to the end. I lost the Brad Pickett fight, which cost me some money. And then, obviously, the main event was the big one. It killed any chance of making. So if Corey Anderson had done the job and won the fight, I would have won huge profit. But ifs and buts were candy and nuts. Either way, I'll be posting bet packs again. $15 for an entire card breakdown, both betting options and fantasy picks. If you're into that, by all means, invest. Certainly, you can subscribe and save yourself some cash per event. If you're doing it well on your own, please continue doing so. Make sure you head over to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. KamikazeOverdrive.net. For all of my preliminary breakdowns. You can pick the polls, pick who's going to win each fight. You can see who the public's backing in each one of those matchups. It should be a fantastic card. And after all this, let's get to that first main card prediction. The first fight of the night takes place in the UFC's lightweight division as former Bellator lightweight champion Ill Will Brooks, 18 wins and 2 losses, takes on the formerly ranked featherweight, I believe he's still ranked 9th in the division, Charles Do Bronx Oliveira, 21 wins, 7 losses, and 1 no contest. Oliveira, as I said, returning to the lightweight division. Brooks is trying to recover from that loss to Alex Oliveira in his last matchup versus 2013 upset I correctly predicted. Kind of a fight marred by Oliveira's missing weight and post-fight antics. It was the first loss for Brooks since 2013. He had won 9 fights in a row. He suffered a rib injury in that fight, which was unfortunate, and Oliveira came in significantly overweight. It was kind of an ugly finish to that matchup. For Do Bronx, he's returning to lightweight for the first time since 2011, which was a loss to Donald Cerrone. Last time we saw him fighting 155 pounds in the lightweight division. We've seen him fighting at 155 pounds more recently than that, though. Overall, he went 7-5 fighting at featherweight. He did finish 1-3 over his last 4 bouts. Fought some high-level guys, including Anthony Pettis, Ricardo Lamas, and Max Holloway, so no shame there. He did miss weight 4 times in that stint fighting in the featherweight division. Certainly that led to his return back to 155 pounds. Both men will come in at 5'10". Oliveira will have a 2-inch reach advantage, and he is 3 years younger than Ill Will Brooks. Now, Brooks is 9-0 in fights going the distance. That's his big number. 9-0 decisions. 7 of his last 8 wins have come on the scoreboard. Comes from a wrestling background, knows how to utilize it. For Oliveira, BJJ black belt, an exceptionally talented, gifted grappler and submission fighter. 13 of his 21 wins have come by submission. He is 2-1 in fights that go to decision. So by comparison, you can see where Brooks does his best work, where Oliveira does his best work. But keep in mind, Oliveira has been finished 6 times, split evenly between submissions and knockouts, which is interesting considering how dangerous he is on the mat. He's now been submitted a couple of times, including back-to-back submission losses to Pettis and Lamas. Now looking at Oliveira first, the Brazilian is a multi-faceted fighter, but as I said, he's known for his grappling. He offers a variety of submissions, but really likes those chokes. But then you go back to the Eric Wisely fight where he pulled off the calf slicer, incredibly impressive and dynamic and resourceful on the mat is a great way to describe him. Very aggressive guard if he hits the ground. His legs, high guard, aggressive, will attack, look for submissions, look for sweeps. Can set up traps very nicely. We saw that in the Myles Jury fight. His wrestling's improving. He can take guys down if he puts his mind to it and really focuses there, but he'll pull guard just as much to get the fight to the ground. He'll throw some high-risk maneuvers trying to facilitate an opportunity for his opponent to look to take him down or put him on the mat where he can go to work and catch them. If he's looking to put his opponent on the floor, look for him to get in on his opponent's hips and body along the cage, push in, try to tie up their legs, trying to take away their base and drag them to the ground. He'll duck under his opponent's strikes to establish that body control and even rotate to back position, their opponent's back, and jump up and look to put him on the floor. He will also attack submissions while standing, which was very impressive. Against Lamas, he attacked a standing, I believe it was a Darce choke, nearly had him early in that fight. And again, it's pull him down to the mat, force him to defend that submission, and go to work. On the other side of things, when he fought Lamas, he spent some time on his back in that matchup. He was losing position at times, still dangerous, but ultimately losing position, and that's not a good thing for a grappler to spend time on their back when that positional battle is being lost because they can't do enough to convince the judges otherwise. Now, he did take Lamas down, which is damn impressive, and but eventually he got caught in a guillotine himself. So it's, Oliveira's hit, he's high risk on the floor, he's very dangerous, but we're seeing cracks where he can have issues as well. On the feet, he's not known for his striking, but he's a very capable striker. He's a very varied striking attack. He'll push the pace, a nice push kick to the body. Not a ton behind his strikes, but he puts them together fairly well. He's constantly moving forward. Against Nick Lentz, he tired him out on the feet. He's got some good knee strikes, jumping knees. He'll use them in the tie clinch. And again, he'll tie up that tie clinch, land a couple knees, and then boom, break it and initiate a takedown attempt. A couple big questions with Oliveira, though, is durability. He's been finished and hurt on multiple occasions. As I said, submitted 3 times. His performances have been a bit inconsistent. He does some things where it's like, for against in the Pettis fight, which I picked him to beat Pettis, he was having a lot of success, but he was eventually losing position on the mat every time they went there. Now, looking at Brooks, he came in with a lot of hype. I'm not 100% sold on what he has to offer. He has trouble with pressure. We've seen that in a couple of fights back in Bellator. Ross Pearson had success with pressure. Oliveira was able to turn that fight around and pressure him as well in that matchup and have success on the cage. What Brooks does well, he's got a decent left jab, straight right he'll mix in as well. His best weapons tend to be his kicks. He'll throw a decent inside leg kick. He'll work a kick to the body. He's got some good standing knee strikes. He'll pull his opponent's head down if they gives him the opportunity. When he fought Pearson, he spent a lot of time in the clinch. It was kind of a back and forth exchange. Against Oliveira, more one-sided, where Oliveira was pushing Brooks into the cage and really controlling that position. Will was landing some knees, but just he was too willing to concede the bad spot on the cage and just not doing enough to make up for it. Will score takedowns if the opportunity presents itself, but a lack of activity from top position has been a bit of an issue, and he did take Alex Oliveira down in round 2, and mounted him, had him in a lot of trouble, won that round because he was able to beat him up so badly on the mat in that dominant position, but ultimately lost the fight. Overall, Will Brooks has underperformed in the UFC in his 2 fights. Debut jitters could have hurt him in his win over Ross Pearson, a closer fight than many people expected it to be. The rib injury certainly compromised his performance against Oliveira, but I had Oliveira winning that fight before the injury took place, and I thought he'd win it ahead of time as well. I would think DeBronx here should benefit from, but still he's going to be a bit undersized. Brooks is a very thick lightweight. While Oliveira is going to have some length on him, Brooks is a very thickly muscled lightweight, which can force him to, cause him to slow down a little bit, but it should give him some ability to control the position and shut down any attempts by Oliveira to get the fight to the ground or to attack off his back. Oliveira is more aggressive on the feet, but I think Brooks is going to really stifle him in the clinch, pin him on the cage, control him there. When they hit the floor, Oliveira will attempt some submissions. Brooks, who's never been submitted, will defend, hold top position, do better with his positional control, do some damage from top position, really break Oliveira down. And my prediction is Will Brooks to defeat Charles Oliveira by decision. Up next, we head to the welterweight division as Thiago the Pitbull Alves, 26-12-0, takes on Patrick the Predator Cote, the current record of 24 wins and 10 losses. Now, looking back at this fight, these are a pair of guys who actually fought for UFC titles back in the day, kind of around the same time. Thiago Alves fighting GSP for the welterweight title, losing. Patrick Cote fighting Anderson Silva for the middleweight title, losing. So probably their relevance was at a far greater point earlier in their careers. And this fight would have been much more interesting then, but still they're trying to get things back on track. And speaking of which, Alves made an attempt to cut to lightweight, one and done, losing to Jim Miller in a very poor performance. Back up to welterweight where he appears prepared to stay. He is 4-6, though, dating back to that GSP loss, so certainly he's on a downward swing in his career, hopefully not the end of his career like Alves as a fighter. Very inconsistent, though. Injuries have cost him a lot of time, so certainly he's looking to get the ship righted, if you will. For Cote, he's coming off a TKO loss to Donald Cerrone, first official knockout. We had the Anderson Silva loss via injury, TKO injury loss, but this is the first time he's ever been actually knocked out. Alessio Sakara obviously hurt him. I think he had him in trouble before the illegal strikes landed. Either way, the first real loss on the record. He had won 3 in a row overall and was 5-1 prior to the Cerrone loss at welterweight, so certainly making a bit of a run or a name for himself at 170 pounds since cutting down from middleweight. He'll need to rebuild that here. Physically, Cote, 2 inches taller. He'll have a 1-inch reach advantage. Alves is the younger man by 3 years. Now, overall, you look at their numbers, their record. They have combined for 22 career wins by knockout. That's damn impressive. Both hit very hard. Both have good chins. Both guys have, either 500 or sub 500 records in fights ended by submission, so obviously not their forte there. Similar records in decisions. Alves 7-5 in the scorecards. Cote 9-5 in the scorecards. So very similar fighters. Cote has a Muay Thai based striking game, but he's known for his power punching. That's where how he's carved out his career path. Not so, he's picked up a couple knockouts recently, but he had a big stretch there where he really wasn't knocking guys out. But his resurgence and his recent success has had a lot to do with a less reckless, more technical approach, a little more wrestling involved, a little less risk, and just being a smarter fighter, a veteran fighter. He's got that big punching power in his overhand right. He throws some hard inside leg kicks. He does a decent job of throwing long punches at distance. He'll unload with short punches, though, on the inside. He throws some nice uppercuts, so eventually dropped Ben Saunders in that match once he got in close. He rocked Berkman, but on the other things, he was rocked by Josh Berkman, covered up, but then he unloaded on Berkman with that right hand and put him away. So that was a brawl that was very entertaining that Cote got the better of. As I said, he's known for having that iron jaw, but again, he was hurt badly by Sakara, rocked by Thompson. Berkman hurt him, dropped multiple times by Cerrone before being finished. So you wonder if a career of being able to take punches eventually catches up to you, and I think that's just the nature of the sport, right? Yeah, you can't answer, can you? Cote, he's shown a willing to stand and trade. He will take damage and rely on that chin and power, which was a mistake against Cerrone. Cerrone was landing big shots, and Cote just seemed lost in that fight. He was hesitating, holding back, and allowing Cerrone to really dictate the pace. I don't think Cote knew what to do, especially after that first knockdown. Now, Thiago Alves, he is a Muay Thai striker as well, and he is brutally efficient with his striking. Some of the best kicks in MMA, turns his hip over, breaks opponents down with those leg kicks, and can really change the complexion of the fight. When he fought Jordan Meehan, he was losing that matchup. I picked him to win the fight. He stopped Meehan with a brutal body shot to the midsection later on in that fight. It only takes one of his leg strikes to land, whether it be to the body, the legs, to really change the complexion of the matchup. Now, in that fight against Meehan, he was having a lot of trouble with the length of Meehan. Similar issues against Carlos Condit. Even though he was landing, there were some issues with finding a home for his strikes. He has a very short, compact, technical striker. We saw him really do a number on Martin Kampmann back in the day before making a Hayat Alves in that fight. That was such a disappointing way for that fight to finish, diving into a submission. I really like the way he ducks down and kind of rolls his shoulders and throws counter hooks over the top. Very effective, especially against an aggressive fighter like Cote presents to him. Issues for Alves have been his cardio and his takedown defense. They kind of, they're the most concerning. They kind of gone hand in hand. That's something Cote could look to exploit. Cote's not a world-class wrestler like some of the guys that have had success putting Alves on the mat. I didn't like the way Cote struggled and responded to the leg kicks of Cerrone. It seemed like it threw his timing off. It seemed like he, when a couple of them landed, it really took away his base, made him unsure of how to, get in and get his offense going without taking damage. I think that's something Alves is going to capitalize on here. Additionally, how does Cote respond to getting knocked out by Cerrone? He got hurt in that matchup and really struggled. Is his chin fading? Is that we talked about already, those guys that take damage and pride themselves in their ability to take damage, eventually it will catch up with them. Alves overall works at a higher rate. He'll be the more impactful striker. I think he'll chip away at Cote, take advantage of his willingness to get hit. He'll land better, more efficient strikes. He's the more technically versed striker, and I think he's more impactful. Over the course of a fight, Cote has the ability to knock you out with one punch. So does Alves, but I think Alves also has the ability to be the better, more efficient striker. I think Cote's chin holds up, but my prediction is Thiago Alves to defeat Patrick Cote by decision. Fight number 3 on the main card takes place in the women's strawweight division as Cynthia Calvillo, undefeated at 4-0, takes on 6-1 Pearl Gonzalez, making her UFC debut. This fight, I believe, is replacing a fight that was removed from the pay-per-view main card. Kind of interesting to see these guys get a spot on the big part of the card. Calvillo, just the one UFC fight. Gonzalez is debuting. It's kind of interesting there. I like to know how the guys at the prelims are responding to that. But more the power to the women. I like, they'll put on a good performance, I do believe. Now, Calvillo's coming off an exceptionally quick turnaround. UFC 209, she made her debut. Old school UFC, you fight UFC 209, you fight at UFC 210, take 211 off, and you fight at UFC 212. Just 1 month since that last fight, that debut, undefeated as a pro overall. For Gonzalez, she's debuting, 7 fights in her career, almost a year layoff coming into this matchup. She has won 6 in a row since her 2012 pro debut loss, and she has a 2013 submission win over Courtney Casey, who's also doing fairly well right now in the UFC. Both girls are 5'4". Calvillo is the younger fighter by 1 year. Gonzalez has fought at heavier weight classes, and she did look heavier, like she just didn't have to cut as much weight when she was fighting girls at 135 pounds. So that's something worth note as well. Gonzalez training at San Diego Combat Academy. Not seeing a ton of big names fighting there. Again, I looked at the list. I could be wrong, though. But certainly not a huge camp as far as producing UFC-level talent. She has 1 win by knockout. 1 win by knockout, 4 submission wins, and she's 1-1 on the scorecards. All 4 of her submission wins by armbar, so you kind of see what her MO is there. 3 first-round finishes, including her TKO victory. She's coming off a second-round submission win, and when she submitted Casey back in the 2013, I said, it came with 17 seconds left in the 3rd round of the fight. So, a very impressive win there, showing she can pick up wins later in matchups. As far as what she brings to the cage, look for her to try and initiate grappling exchanges. Clinch, trip takedowns, advanced position. She has a nice job of really progressing. Guard, slide out of guard into half guard, side control, mount, look for an armbar. She will also attempt that ill-fated headlock hip toss thing you see a lot of women attempt. It can work. It can also cost position and give your opponent your back and ultimately lead to the end of the matchup, usually ending badly for the person who screws up the attempt. If taken down, she will attack off her back. I saw in one of her other fights use that armbar to force her opponent to defend and eventually move into top position where she mounted and quickly stopped the fight with ground and pound. When forced to fight on her feet, she's got some pretty hard, decent low kicks, nothing overwhelming. It's kind of her best weapon. She'll throw lots of them. She'll throw a left jab, right hook behind, combination. Well, actually, a lot of left jabs, the odd right hook, not really in combination. She'll toss out a head kick periodically. That seems one of her most devastating weapons when she works it in. If she throws a lot of low kicks, look for a head kick to eventually get mixed in. Not a ton of activity, not overly fleet of foot on the feet either. And looking at her level of competition, her last 4 opponents are a combined 4 wins and 12 losses. Now looking at Calvillo, she trains out of Team Alpha Male, which is a great camp producing all kinds of UFC level caliber fighters. 2 wins by knockout, 1 submission, 1 decision. Obviously, she has her debut behind her, which was a successful victory. Good takedown defense. She's good at stuffing her opponent. I've seen her opponents try and take her down, and she's got a very good basis to shut down those attempts. If they do get in and get her off her feet, she's very strong, good hips, able to counter takedown attempts into a superior position. Likes to move to back control. When she does hit the mat, she'll use that body triangle. She melds together her strikes and transitions and eventually leads to sub-attempts on the ground very effectively. When she fought Cooper threw kind of a lazy, naked leg kick, if you will, and we saw Calvillo latch onto it and score a single leg takedown. She won a nice scramble that kind of rolled and transitioned, and she got the better of the situation for Cooper. Locked up a choke. I believe she was going for an anaconda choke. Eventually transitioned to back mount, which was incredibly impressive. Obviously her preferred position, and got the rear naked choke finish, which was great. Her striking still a work in progress. It's improving, and she'll use it to set up her shot, but she had some moments where she looked good. She threw a nice 1-2 and finished with a hard low kick, which Dominic Cruz made note of. If she can pile that up, I think she can be a little more active, a little quicker on the feet than her opponent. Overall, though, Calvillo's coming from a better camp, is the better positionally sound fighter. Gonzalez will give up position for submission, looking for a finish. If she can't get it, she'll be at that deficit. I think Calvillo is going to defend Gonzalez's early attempts, Pearl's early attempts to get the fight finished, and that's going to lead to her superior situation. She'll be on top. She'll be able to start working her own grappling once her defense holds up. Obviously, has to be careful. Gonzalez has beating lower level fighters. That debut, that step up in competition, all are concerning. Additionally, you've got the fact she's been out for a year, where Calvillo is, she's fairly fresh. She should be fairly, in game mode, if you will, having fought just a month ago, I think Calvillo gets the better of her, and my prediction is Cynthia Calvillo to defeat Gonzalez by submission. In the co-main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's middleweight division as the number 4 ranked middleweight and former champion Chris the All-American Weidman, 13-2-0, takes on the 5th ranked fighter Gegard Mousasi, 41 wins, 6 losses, and 2 draws. Mousasi, the former Strikeforce and Dream champions. This is a big fight for both men, and for vastly different reasons. Weidman, they're obviously the same goal, but they're in different positions. Weidman has lost back-to-back fights, the first 2 of his career, after defending his title on 3 separate occasions. He's looking to reestablish himself as a legit contender, get back in the mix. Mousasi hasn't got there yet in the UFC. He's had a couple of setbacks, losses to Machida and Jacare that prevented him, and Uriah Hall prevented him from taking that next step. This win here, should he procure it, would really put him in that upper echelon of opponent and give him an opportunity to make that push. When you look at their caliber of opposition, Mousasi overall, he's looked good. He's won 4 fights in a row, but certainly not the level of competition that Weidman has been facing. Both have wins over Vitor Belfort, but, Weidman has been fighting, Mousasi's been fighting strikers other than Talis Leitas, the guys that he matches up well with and beating those guys. Weidman's last 2 fights came against 2 of the top-ranked fighters in the division. One guy, Luke Rockhold, successfully predicted that upset there, former champion, and Yoel Romero, arguably the next champion. Oh yeah, GSP is fighting the title, which is crazy in itself, but nonetheless, those are 2 impressive guys, despite the fact he lost to both. Physically, both men are 6'2", Weidman 2-inch reach advantage. Mousasi is the younger man by a year. Looking at the experience, Mousasi has more victories by knockout in 22 than Chris Weidman has in pro fights, 15 overall. So there you go, just a little bit of stats to throw at you there. For the most part, this is a striker versus grappler matchup. Not like the traditional way it used to be, but more like we're seeing now. One guy's very good at striking, the other guy's a capable striker but wants to fight on the mat. Mousasi is the guy who wants to fight to stay on the feet. Weidman can hold his own on the feet. He's that guy that can, hang in there, but it's not where he wants to be. He wants to be contesting this matchup on the floor, preferably in top position. When you look at Gegard Mousasi, he's shown he can wrestle. He's landed 9 takedowns over his last 6 fights, but not against top-level wrestlers. He gave up 4 in his loss to Jacare and really struggled off his back in that matchup. Chris Weidman, he took Yoel Romero down once. He took Luke Rockhold down on 3 separate occasions, and he averaged 2.33 completions per fight during his first 9 UFC fights, all of them victories, including a 5 takedown performance against Lyoto Machida, which is pretty darn impressive. Once Weidman gets the fight to the ground, he can control top position. He will, hold his opponent down, land some pretty good ground and pound, mixes in some solid elbows, and he will look for submissions. He's pretty difficult to buck off if you're not a great bottom fighter. If he can't get the takedown and keep his opponent on the ground, his striking clinch game next, and then use that to control the opponent on the cage. If he's forced to rely on striking, he will certainly be second best here. I do like the way Weidman tries to make his striking better by using his wrestling. He'll fake takedowns and land strikes, including a nice left hook. He'll use that wrestling to set it up. He throws some decent combinations, right, left. He'll have success with pressure once he gets on the inside. Look for him to paw with his left hand, throw a left jab. He'll throw some short hooks, short punches, short elbows on the inside as well. Knees in the clinch. At distance, his kicks aren't bad. Front kick to the body, low kick, body kick, head kick. He'll do it all. A little bit clunky, not like smooth like Luke Rockhold was able to win. That was one of the reasons I picked Rockhold in that fight. He was a better kicker. We have seen him have issues on the feet, in addition to those knockouts. Machida hurt him a couple of times. He struggled with the aggression when Machida pushed forward. I felt he didn't respond well to getting hit. The finish against Rockhold, he got smashed, but the stoppage against Romero was brutal, and you wonder how does that play a role here? Does it hurt his confidence? Does it make him second guess his ability to strike with guys, or dive in and look for takedowns? Or does it force him just to return to that wrestling base as the center of his attack and rely heavier on that? Mousasi's a very skilled striker. He's calculated, he hits hard, he has a good quick jab, he can counter strike, he's got good kicks. And over 5 rounds, I could see him piecing up Weidman, or at least, getting enough, especially in the later, getting something early, and then eventually in the later rounds taking over as Weidman slows down a little bit. But over 3 rounds, I think Weidman has the ability to grind it out and put Mousasi on the floor. How will Mousasi fare in a fight against a fighter that he can't take down and is looking to take him down? We've seen him struggle before in that situation. Haven't seen anything to suggest he's improved there. Mousasi's gas tank isn't all that great either. We've seen him slow down as well. As I said, Jacare had a lot of success taking him down and then pinning him on the cage between takedowns. I think Weidman follows that game plan. I think Weidman uses his takedowns, top position control to put Mousasi on the mat, grinds him out on the cage for the duration, and my prediction is Chris Weidman to defeat Gegard Mousasi by decision. And now it's time for the main event of the evening, a rematch from a fight that really wasn't anticipated because it kind of came together very quickly. But nonetheless, the champion, DC, Daniel Cormier, 18 wins and 1 loss, puts his title on the line again against the number 1 ranked Anthony Rumble Johnson, 22 wins and 5 losses. Now it's the rematch from their 2015 bout at UFC 187. The fight was changed after John Jones was stripped of the title for all the issues he had. He was preparing to fight Johnson, as Cormier stepped in to fight and win the title. Since Cormier's 2-0 with wins over Anderson Silva, which is a non-title fight, and his very entertaining defense, very close defense against Alexander Gustafsson, one of the most unlucky men in the world when it comes to winning title fights. Rumble Johnson 3-0 since the loss, defeating Jimmy Manawa, Ryan Bader, and Glover Teixeira, the last two in very, very tidy fashion. Physically, Johnson 3 inches taller, 6-inch reach advantage, and he is 5 years younger. Now, Daniel Cormier, known for his wrestling, uses wrestling in the first fight. He has been talking to the media and saying he's going to strike with Johnson. He's not going to wrestle him. He's going to beat him on the feet. Is this truth or is this deception? Cormier is a very big talker. He talks the talk, he walks the walk, but he's a smart man and he wants to plant a seed and have Johnson guessing. Is he going to shoot on me? Is he going to come in and trade? What do I need to be prepared for? If he thinks he's going to strike, Johnson thinks he's actually going to strike with him, well, then he becomes more, vulnerable to being taken down. If he's saying, well, I don't care if you're going to strike with me, I know you're going to shoot on me, then he's still focusing on two different, defensive fronts. So it's interesting to see how that plays out. In the first fight, total strikes, Cormier outlanded him 70-28. Johnson probably landed the bigger strikes. He had a knockdown. He hurt Cormier a couple of times. Daniel landed 3 of his 8 takedown attempts, ended them out at the 2:39 mark of the third round via rear naked choke. The way the first fight kicked off, a big hard leg kick landed by Rumble Johnson early in that matchup. He threw some head kicks, which appeared to do some damage, but it also led to takedown opportunities when Cormier was able to latch on and close the distance. We saw Cormier get smashed. That huge right hand early by Johnson dropped. Johnson rushed in. Cormier miraculously recovered quickly and eventually turned the situation in his position and clinched up, got the fight in a wrestling battle, and took over. Cormier did an excellent job of making Rumble carry his weight, slammed him down. Johnson was fighting his way up, using energy, exhausting himself in a manner that wasn't productive offensively. Johnson trying to punch while defending single leg takedowns. He still got a lot on those strikes, but eventually it led to a bad position for him. Overall, Johnson was being exceptionally aggressive in that fight, and DC was trying to tie up and take advantage of his constant push forward to engage in the wrestling. When they were trading, Johnson was landing the more impactful strikes. The big head kicks were getting through. DC landed a couple of good shots. He was landing a jab, but again, he was ducking under the clinch and looking to clinch up, drive Johnson to the cage, and get back to his base. Eventually, DC, got into the clinch, big slam, second round. Johnson was slowing down, led to more top control, and Rumble being more tired. DC on top for a prolonged period of time. Third round, Rumble actually scored a takedown early, but clearly was running out of gas and didn't have a lot to offer. Got his back taken, got submitted. End of story. Cormier fought his fight. Grind, control, wear him down, take away the threat, or at least minimize the threat of the power, finished him on the floor. That's what he wanted. He probably couldn't have drawn it up better than him. He probably wouldn't have liked to. He would like to avoid taking some of the damage he took on the feet, but still, good performance for Cormier. For Johnson, he was looking to kill. He came forward, that right hand cocked. He came forward looking to smash Cormier like he has everyone else. Distance. Johnson didn't fight smart. You go back to that Phil Davis fight. Phil Davis looking for takedowns. Johnson fought on the outside, landed power, did damage, but kept Phil Davis, minimized Phil's attempts to close the distance, and looked to put him on the ground. Very effective, very impressive performance. I picked Johnson in that first matchup. I felt Rumble would be able to control the exchanges, back DC up with his power, and eventually land that killer blow. He did none of that. Couldn't back him up even though he landed power. Couldn't, control the exchanges because he kept floating forward and getting taken down or clinched up. If DC wants to stand and trade and he actually goes through with it, that's fantastic, but I can't see him doing it for too long. If he doesn't get knocked out doing that, he's going to revert back to his wrestling and look to take this fight to the ground. Go back to what worked. Defend that title. There is a massive money fight in the future against John Jones, and that's a fight he knows is coming his way that he might not ever get if he loses this matchup, so I can't see him not looking for the smart way in this fight. DC is surprisingly the underdog on the cards, despite a pretty dominant first performance. He's a slight dog. I could see that being changed when the money starts coming in on the champion. I think Johnson overall, though, can make adjustments from his first fight. We saw, Alexander Gustafsson, once he established defending the takedowns, and Johnson's normally a pretty tough guy to take down if he doesn't just rush forward. Once Gus was able to, limit the threat of the takedowns, he had a lot of success striking with Cormier. And if Johnson's the type of guy, if he lands a couple shots on you, you might not get an opportunity to take any more because you're going out. And, I tip my hat to Cormier and his ability to take damage and not go down in that first fight. But still, if Johnson starts to land stuff, he didn't land a heck of a lot of punches in that fight. And, if he can pile them up early, it's certainly Cormier's going to have a hard time coming back from that. Overall, DC, despite his success in that first matchup, he was still hit. Can he withstand those shots again? I don't know. More than one? I don't think so. I think Johnson's going to be a little less aggressive. He's going to set up his strikes better. He's going to land some leg kicks early on, low leg kicks, but he's going to look to box with Cormier, look to land those punches, maybe even sit back and counter-strike what we saw against Gus, but not create those openings for Cormier to clinch up. Force Cormier. If you want to tie up, you got to come forward. You got to attack me. Get inside without taking damage. I think Johnson's going to land something big, and my prediction is Anthony Rumble Johnson to defeat Daniel Cormier by knockout and become the new UFC light heavyweight champion. So those are my 5 main card predictions for UFC 210. All of my preliminary picks, I believe there will be 8 of them available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. The bet packs will be posted as well later in the week. You can follow me on Twitter at KO_predictions. We're also on Facebook. Check us out there. Go to the website as well. Vote in the public picks to see who you think is going to win each matchup. That's always fun to see. And again, anytime you need to email me or contact me on Facebook or via Twitter, please do so. I'd like to say make it positive, but if you have a question or something that's maybe on the negative side of things, by all means, I'll do my best to answer your question or deflect it and call you an idiot. I won't do that, but either way, I always like hearing from people. I have people like, oh, I'm sorry to bug you. You're not bugging me. I'm busy as fuck, but at the same time, because that's what I do. This is just a hobby. It can be very onerous, if you will. So I try and do my best to fit this in also with a family and all the other things I do as well. It can be very difficult. Either way, I very much enjoy this. I actually, and I'll tell you this straight up, just between you and me, as the 2-week break we had between these two cards, all it quits. You know what? We'll just shut her down. I've enjoyed my time away from predicting fights. I've enjoyed my time away from all of this stuff. Maybe we should just wrap it up there. And you never know, maybe that's coming in the not too distant future. Maybe we shut her down at the end of 2017 and just say it's been a good run. I've had, a good time doing this. But yeah, hey, we'll see where where we are. Thanks guys for tuning in, and we'll see you. We got a lot of fights to cover here in the next couple of weeks, so let's get back on track, folks. Take care.